What's crackalacking everyone, Luxans here, your coach of the Hangzhou Sparkling Aria, and today I'm here for my week 1 game against the Maryland Torterrapins, coached by Under Radar, aka Kelly. He's a very nice guy. Please check all his links out in the description below. I obviously check Jack's links out in the description below, as he's the commissioner of UPBA. Let's get right into it. So, I brought Tapu Fini, Weavile, Dialga, Mienshao, Mudstill, and G-Slowking with the items you can see here. I will explain the sets as we go through the game. And Kelly brought Rotom-Mow, Obstagoon, Garchomp, Solgaleo, Barbaracle, and Sylveon. Now, Kelly had a very potent team. He also had a Gengar, and he had a few other mons that I felt like could come. But mainly the Gengar I was kind of surprised about that he didn't bring. I did think that the Barbaracle could come, however, as especially my build didn't really have a lot for it, and even then I considered Zapdos over uh, some of my Pokemon, which obviously wouldn't have dealt with the Barbarical if it was set up either. So I think it's a very good bring from him, as it could abuse quite a few of my Pokemon. Now, the lead that I picked here was Weavile. I specifically prepared Weavile to be a lead in this matchup, as the most likely leads on this team I felt were Rotom-Mow, Garchomp, or Archeops, which we've all dealt with all three of them. With the combination of Icicle Spear, Knockoff, Throat Chop, and Low Kick on my Weavile, I decided that he would be the best lead. So he does lead with the Rotom-Mow, and I do lead with my Weavile. Now right here, Kelly could obviously be a Scarf set, but I felt like Scarf Willow was not too likely, and even so, I do get a free knock onto something right here. And also, obviously, it's a Rotom versus a Weavile. He might not even want to stay in scouting if I am Scarf or anything of the sorts. So I do just decide to go for the free knockoff here onto whatever he wants to send out, which ends up being the Sylveon. So we do get a nice knock onto this to remove its item, which is very nice for me, obviously. Not having to deal with leftovers is very good. I do just decide to go for the Throat Chop here, in case he wants a Hyper Voice. Now, obviously, you could also Wish, you could Baton Pass, you could do something else, but Throat Chop just felt like the safest play, get some damage on the Sylveon, and it would allow me to stop any attack that would go my way and break my Focus Sash. Now, right here, Kelly decides to go out into his Solgaleo, as he doesn't really have anything to outspeed me necessarily. I assume he doesn't want to take damage on anything else. To me, this tells me, okay, this is Colbur Berry. So I think about the Mudstill play for a sec, but then I think, it's whatever. I can break the Colbur Berry with knockoff, and I can just get a bit of free damage here. Maybe he's not even Colbur Berry, maybe he's just a bulky set, but he does end up being the Colbur Berry. So we do get the knock here for some free damage, as this Solgaleo uses a beautiful Sunsteel Strike. This animation is phenomenal. And just look at it. Like, that looks so sick. But he does use the Sunsteel Strike on me, which obviously brings me down to my Sash. And because of that, I decide to go out into my Mudstill, seeing as it was prepped to be a Solgaleo check for later in the game. It is now later in the game, so we will use it as the Solgaleo check. Mudstill comes in just to take the hit. He goes for a knockoff here, which is a little annoying, as that gets rid of my leftovers, but I think it's overall better for me, as Sunsteel Strike would have obviously done more damage. And I do decide to make the double into Weavile here, as I figured he wouldn't stay in here. He would probably go out into the Rotom, as if I went for Rocks, he could have defogged those away, and if I went for an Earthquake, he obviously is completely immune to that, so I decided to go out into the Weavile to cover for this play. Now, he does reveal to be Flame Orb here, and after the game, Kelly told me that he was Flame Orb to trick it onto a potential lead Dialga or a pivot into a G-Slowking. However, the Weavile lead obviously kind of messed with that. So, I decided, alright, let's just get an Icicle Spear on this thing, which can do a good bit of damage. We will get a few hits here. Obviously, Icicle Spear is a multi-hit move, and we do get 3 hits here, which is a good amount of damage, and that's good chip on his Rotom, which would otherwise just be able to Volt Switch spam all over my team. So I will 100% take that. He decides to withdraw it and go out into his Obstagoon right here, which obviously leads me to go out into my Mienshao, which outspeeds, as I know he is Flame Orb now. We go out into the Mienshao. Come on. Yeah, okay, there we go. We got into the Mienshao, and I decide I'm just going to U-turn here. There's not really a drawback to it. I do still have the Mudsdale to take the hit, stuff like that, so I can just U-turn here for free. I didn't think he would stay in. If I like close combat or something, he could go out into the Sylveon, he could go out into the Rotom to take the hit and just get a free pivot into something. And U-turn gets me in the free momentum. So Rotom goes down here, it's now 5-5, and Mienshao does come back. And I go out into my G-Slowking, as I prepared it to be a sort of lure for Garchomp, for Obstagoon, and for Gengar, with the combination of Ice Beam, Focus Blast, Foul Play, and Thunder Wave. Now, the Obstagoon comes out here, and I'm Colbur, so I will live a knock. I can Focus Blast if it hits. I obviously get a kill, very nice. If this was Garchomp, I could Ice Beam. I live 1 Earthquake from unboosted Garchomp, and do a huge chunk of damage, maybe even kill, depending on the set. If it was Gengar that came out, I live a Shadow Ball from any sort of Gengar, and I could Thunder Wave and Foul Play, etc. We do miss the Focus Blast, however, so that's unfortunate, and he does get the kill onto my G-Slowking here, which is a little unfortunate, but it is what it is. The set was not the most important, and it was more so there just to get a cheeky kill or cripple something if possible. I try to see if it's worth trying to preserve the Slowking, but in the end I decide Focus Blast is just a better play. This mon is fairly expendable, so I do just go for that. And sack the G-Slowking here. So now obviously the Obstagoon is here out, so I do just end up going out into Mienshao once again. And I decide to click Close Combat here, because if he predicts a U-turn, and I do go for that, and he clicks Facade, I do just have to sack health on a Pokemon, which I don't really want to do. So I decide that my best play is just to go for a Close Combat here, which I do click. And he decides to withdraw his Obstagoon, which is a fine play, and go out into Garchomp, probably trying to catch me on a U-turn to get extra chip. And see if I'm like a Regenerator set or a Reckless set or something like that. Now from this, he probably realizes, okay, he's not Reckless, he doesn't have a Jump Kick. And he does reveal to be a leftover Garchomp, which is great for me, as this tells me that it's unlikely that he will have any sort of, what's it called? I'm blanking completely right now, but any sort of boosting item, that's it. Jesus Christ. Which, my Feeny is made to take a +2 Sword Stance, or +2 Poison Jab, Sword Stance up, Poison Jab, if you will, from this Garchomp, if it is unboosted. Now, he does end up going for the Earthquake here, and since I'm Air Balloon Feeny, I do just wall that. If you want to go for anything like Earthquake or Scale Shot or something like that, I would just be able to sit on this thing. And I do just end up going for Scald here as a neutral play, in case you want to go out into Solgaleo, trying to predict my Moonblast. He does go for the Toxic here, which, good prep from him. I assume this was to stall out these Zapdos, because I think, from what I saw from his Pokepaste, he was Subtoxic, I think? Earthquake Subtoxic with last move. I don't remember exactly what the last move was, but I assume that would have been for my Zapdos, which is honestly a good prep, because Zapdos isn't immune to Toxic in Terrain. But ends up working out for him that I'm not Terrain as well, to get Scald Burns. But I do decide to double out here, as I predict that he wouldn't want to stay in. He has Earthquake, he has Toxic. He either, in my mind, had Sword Dance or he had Rocks, as he didn't really have anything else that would want to carry those. So, or nothing else that would carry Rocks, and Sword Dance obviously just a great bring on Chomp in most matchups. And a Dragon move, so he wouldn't be able to touch me. So I do bring out Dialga on the double as he goes on to Sylveon, and I do start setting up my bulk ups here. Now, he scouts here with a Protect, which is really unfortunate versus this Dialga set, because it does just allow me to get a free bulk up. And I do go for another bulk up here, as I do need +3 to 2-hit KO physically defensive Sylveon, as he just goes for a Hyper Voice here to scout some damage, which is completely fine by me. It won't do too much, so it actually did a decent chunk. It's more than I remembered, but oh well. I do decide to go for a third bulk up here, as it is essentially completely free. And he does go out into his Solgaleo here, probably trying to get damage on me or something of the sorts, as I set up my third bulk up. And at this point, I would be able to it KO any sort of Sylveon with Earthquake, Past Wish, and stuff like that. So I decide, alright, I can... At this point, I think I'm calcing if a close combat into a Earthquake from Garchomp would kill me. So I do think I take a fairly large amount of time on this turn, which is honestly fine, as I do just end up going for the Earthquake anyway, because I think the max damage that both together would do was like 120 something. But I did find it important to calc whether that sequence would be able to kill me at +3. So I take my time to do that real quick, and I do have the Earthquake play ready in case I need to make it. Yeah, I get down to like all the way to like 4 seconds or something, I think. 3, okay. But I do just go for the Earthquake here, as the close combat does a decent chunk of damage, but 96 is nowhere near enough to kill with that. So we do get the Solgaleo here, which very good for me, obviously. And now we are in a prime position to sweep the rest of Kelly's team. Now he does go out into the Garchomp here, as it is the strongest move to hit this Dialga at this point, because his other mons are Obstagoon, which maybe with a close combat would have done more, but I doubt that it does more than a stab Garchomp Earthquake. He has the Sylveon, which can't do much, and he has the Barbarical, which has to set up first. And he does go for an Earthquake here as I go for a Rest with Chesto, but he does get the crit, unfortunately for me, which really sucks, because the Dialga set, I think, was really cool. I didn't get to show it off fully in-game, but that's just how it is, and that's what happens in Mons every so often, right? So, it's unfortunate, but it's whatever. I do decide to go out into Mienshao here, as from the prior close combat, I can tell this close combat is going to kill his Garchomp. Oh, and I went for a Rest instead of a Skill Shot, as missing a Skill Shot would essentially lose my Dialga there. So I went for a Rest to cover for that, so I could afford to miss a future Skill Shot, or just go for an Earthquake as well, because obviously that would have done enough as well into a weakened Garchomp. Now, we do just go for the close combat here, and he does give me the Garchomp right here, which is very nice for me, as this thing would have been a threat otherwise, potentially. Say he is able to, like, substall my Feeny or something like that, which would be a bit tough for the Barbarical later down the line. So now here he goes out into the Sylveon. I think I just U-turn here, and just for a little bit of free chip, to make sure, I don't know, it's just for a little bit of free chip. There's no reason for me not to U-turn, so I just go for U-turn there. I'd already revealed not to be Scarf or anything, so We do go out into the Mudstill here, as the Solgalio's down, the Garchomp is down, and I don't really need the Mudstill for anything else. It's kind of nice for the Obstagoon, but I do also have a Mienshao and a Tapu Fini still, so necessary is not something that this Mudstill is at this point. And I do decide to go for Toxic here, as he does go for the Protect. Just trying to get health back with the Wish. This turn takes a bit. I think he's debating what he wants to do here, whether he wants to Protect or like Hyper Voice probably, or anything of the sorts. So we do see the Protect come out eventually, and my Toxic obviously just doesn't do anything at that point, and he gets his health back with Wish. Now, I think at this next turn, I also take some time to try and see whether or not... Oh yeah, I tried to decide whether I want an Earthquake or Toxic, because I feel like the Obstagoon might come out to try and absorb the Toxic and get free damage on something, which would be fairly unfortunate, because a Toxic on the Sylveon is going to help me a lot trying to beat it in the end game. As I'm looking towards going for a Mienshao endgame, trying to get this into Poison Jab range, and then have Fini like Nature's Madness or Moonblast or whatever for damage on this. But I do end up deciding to go out into the Mienshao actually, as I'm very Spidef and a V, and because of that, able to take a Hyper Voice from the Sylveon. So I got out into Mienshao. He goes for the Hyper Voice, which does a decent chunk of damage. It doesn't kill though, and that's the important part, because now I can just U-turn out and get a little bit of chip on the Sylveon again. Which doesn't matter too much, but it's just nice to have. As I do end up going out into the Mudstill here. And he goes for the Hyper Voice here, which does a decent chunk of damage. Actually, there's a fairly big chunk, honestly. But right here, I can just go for a very free Toxic onto the Sylveon. An 81 just now with the Hyper Voice. So realistically, it's either a roll or a guaranteed live. And he does get the 81 roll again, so I assume that was roughly like a mid-roll. As I go for the Toxic here and do get that onto the Sylveon. So, at this point, apologies. At this point, I decide to go for the Protect to try and get a little bit of extra Toxic damage onto the Sylveon. And I find this angle so weird for the Protect on Mudstill. So, complete random side note, by the way, but anyhow. We do get that extra bit of damage onto this, and I do decide, hey, I'm going to go for another Protect to try and catch him on another Hyper Voice. I could also go for Earthquake, which, if he went for a Wish, probably would have been a better play just to stack up more damage, but I figured he would want to kill this to not allow me to stall like that. So he does take a bit more poison damage, which brings his Sylveon close to half. And right here, I think I go out into Mienshao to try and get more health back for the U-turn. 30 U-turn, rather. So that if I need to, I can pivot back into the Sylveon with my Mienshao, which would allow me to get the kill there. Now, he does take a little bit of damage from the U-turn, as I go out into my Fini, which he Hyper Voices on. Also, I went to the Mienshao to bait the Hyper Voice and not make him go switch to the Obstagoon or anything like that, as I realized that if my Fini is out while his Barbaracle is out, that's not good for me, because he can set up a Shell Smash. While Mienshao has like a 90% chance to kill with close combat. So, I do decide, okay, I have enough health, because I lived on 41 from the prior Moonblast, and Sylveon is now in Poison Jab range. I'm just going to go out into my Mienshao. If you went for a Wish or anything, you would have taken a lot of poison damage, so I don't think it would have mattered there. So I do just decide to go out into Mienshao eventually. Yeah. As I think he also switches out, trying to play for him having a close combat resist still. So he goes out into Obstagoon, which is unfortunate for him, obviously, as he won't be able to do much for that. But I decide to go for the close combat here. There's no reason for me to go for anything else. And I just go to Obstagoon here as he lets it go down. Now, at this point, I obviously haven't revealed Poison Jab yet. So he does not know I have that, and he decides to go out into Sylveon to try and force me out back into the Feeny to get more damage for his Barbarical and to get a setup opportunity with that. However, right here he does end up going out into the Sylveon in a second, which essentially just kind of seals the game. I get a Poison Jab, and then obviously it still depends on the roll, actually, with the Barbarical versus Mienshao, which, if he gets that 10% roll, I do think I just kind of lose, depending on how well my Feeny would have taken a Stone Edge, which I can actually check, I do believe. I think I still have my sets in the calc, yes. So, a Barbarical unboosted +2 Stone Edge would have actually killed, I think. Just about, that would have been a roll. So, it would have come down to the roll there. But Poison Jab does kill the Sylveon, and I do just go for the close combat here, because I obviously don't have a different play. And we will see that close combat does just kill the Barbarical here. Like I said, it was a 90% chance to kill, but obviously that 10% chance is a very real chance to happen. So it could have gone either way still there, and it was a great game overall in my opinion versus Kelly. So great game to him. And again, please go check him out in the description below. He's a great guy. Very cool. Make great content as well. One of the few like OG Draft League people to me that still makes good content and stuff like that. And we do just end up winning the game right there. So GG's to him, obviously. And please go check him out in the description below. I just wanted to talk about some things after the game, so if you're not really interested in that, this is your like kind of, hey, you can stop watching now. But I decided to post-calm this game, and I'm probably gonna post-calm the rest of my season, cause I don't know, I just prefer it. I just prefer post-calming overall. I never really enjoyed live calming in the few Sword and Shield leagues that I did do. I always really liked the post-calm like kind of style, cause I can just sit back, relax, talk over my game, talk over my plays, talk about what was going on inside my head. I feel like the plays show that there's no like, oh, I'm trying to make myself look better than I am or whatever. But I do just prefer that. It allows me to focus on the game while I'm playing. That is the number one thing for me. I will focus too much on talking, completely forget something, and it's just horrible. But I do want to give you guys good games to watch, and I feel like me giving the commentary after, it's just better overall for the quality of the game and the quality of my commentary. So I will probably be doing that for the rest of the season. Maybe I'll do a live com or two, but I think that's unlikely to do for me. Now, the other thing I want to touch upon is that I didn't do a draft analysis for this league because I personally just prefer not doing them. I think it's a lot of effort to make a video for that, which tends to not really do anything other than say, hey, I drafted this Pokemon because it works well with these Pokemon, and I like this Pokemon. Like, I don't really think it does anything interesting, but just to go over my draft real quick, I have a Dialga, I have a Tapu Fini, I have a Zapdos, I have a Weavile, I have a G-Slowking, I have a Mienshao, I have a Buttstill, I have a Tangela, I have a Lickitung, and I have a Sudowoodo. So, if you want to know my full draft, that's it. If I make any FAs, I'll obviously mention that. But that is my draft, and next week actually we'll be facing Sally Mumble, who has a Pheromosa, so that will be pretty scary. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.